Well, that blew up. Yeah, a lot of you seem to like my previous video, so I'm going to capitalize on it and do a part 2. Trust me, if you'd liked the previous video, you're going to love this one, as it goes over a lot of the inconsistencies that I had of my theory, along with a few theories and evidence that almost made it into the draft.
But before I continue, please look at this chart. Do you know what this is? That's right, it's my sub percentage. Please, it would mean the world to me if you subscribed. You can always change your mind later, and also ring that bell to be notified when I upload. I don't upload too often, so I promise you won't get spammed.
And what a better way to start to go into my comment section. You guys had a lot to say about my theory, which prompted me. Wait, guys, I can explain. I'll get to it, alright? I didn't expect. Excuse me on my pronunciation on a few things. I didn't expect this video to get so widespread. I pretty much wrote my analysis in Notepad, put some thought into it while I walked my dog, threw it all together, and then recorded it all in one take under my blanket, like I'm doing now. Do you think I had the time to understand how to pronounce the word Wyatt? Moving on, a lot of you did watch my video and actually left actual advice and support in the comments, and I thank you for that. But please understand that my main objective was to get my theory across, not to spell everything correctly. Now, if there are any other complaints with the way I edit, please leave them for my attorney. Shut up! One thing I was not expecting was the man himself, Kane Pixel, to respond to my video. He responded with, "Not convinced. WYATT switched out of botany." Yeah, I know he did. He switched to business, as is said in the trail cam quote.
My old botany professor. I ended up switching to business back in like January.
I originally thought this was not related to his true botany personality, and it was just a one-off quip, but I think Kane is trying to say that the mall's intentions are not to test for his botany potential. In fact, the name 8 vegetables to start with the letter B sign is an actual sign in the mall, not a test like I originally thought it to be. But maybe there's more to the backstory of WYATT's story. WYATT switching to business major might be an actual plot point, and his encounter with the mall was a punishment or a lesson, but we have so little to work with for WYATT's backstory that anything would be guessing. So maybe it's got to do with dead horses. Speaking of dead horses, one of you thought the dead horses was a metaphor for the glue used to make the mask. Some of you are not the brightest, but a few of you pointed things out I didn't see. I'm gonna go over a few. Like the document for the escape exit being Julian's birth and death date. Or when Julian peeks through the dark room, we see his face cower into the darkness. But one thing I didn't touch upon that someone reminded me of was this scene. When Wyatt looks to the ceiling, we see the same place where Wyatt would climb onto in the final scene. But there's no hole in the wall. This brings me a new meaning to whatever state the mall is in the final scene. Speaking of which, the mall didn't look like this before its demolishment. It looked like this. So what is this mall a result of? Simple, really. It's the result of it being underground for way too long. But it can't be that simple. Why did the hole form then? It is clearly some form of manipulation tactic from whatever the entity is controlling the mall. The same manipulation that the document number and the face around the corner is influenced by. But what is the ultimate goal of this so-called entity? If it's not to discover if WYATT is truly a botanist, then what is the point of scaring WYATT? Well, I do like my theory of possession, so I will stick to it as much as I can to make it work, but maybe the circumstance to prepare someone for the ritual is bigger than just making sure they're a botanist. Maybe it's scaring them to the point of submission. But if that is true, why not scare the previous explorers for the ritual? That brings me to one of the revelations of my theory. WYATT is the first down there. Or at least I think so. See, there are two possible reasons there are no bodies on the surface when WYATT discovers the place. Number one is the entity cleans up their crime scenes. Or number two, the more likely assumption, WYATT is the result of the giant's skull, be that possession or whatever it has done to him. Which means either this is the mall's first victim, or WYATT is different from the rest of the explorers before, and they throw him out for that difference. Now, both sides of this story has its evidence. Evidence for WYATT being the first victim is the date on the trail cam. This date was pointed at in Wendigo's interview of Kane. It means something that the mall was fully demolished on this day. It means that this hole is most likely new and not a trap that's been trapping people for months. But for the side of WYATT being different is the other bodies surrounding the giant, including the ones beneath WYATT when he's balancing on the scaffolding. They must be previous victims or explorers in the hole, right? Well, not so fast. Why are there horses? The useless as a dead horse theory is dumb. Symbolism can be a good storytelling device. In fact, my original draft for my previous video dove deep into the symbolism of plants, the color green, and even into the concept of malls before I settled on my possession theory. But dead horses? Making them a form of symbolization was inevitable, but I simply don't think it's that simple. So I dove deeper, looking for anything horse related to the giant or the mall, and found nothing. Again. If you are trying to look deeper into this story, I highly suggest you look for something horse-related. I bet it's important. But we are losing focus. Those dead bodies must be previous explorers that didn't have something that Wyatt did, right? Maybe they weren't as scared or young. But there are multiple bodies visible, and probably even more that aren't visible. Wyatt must have had something truly unique to be different from all of those explorers, most likely referring to his backstory of switching to business from botany, and maybe, just maybe, it's got to do with horses. But yeah, this video is getting kind of long, so I'm gonna go over one last thing before I wait for the next episode to come out. Kane, I know you're watching my video. That's right, I see you crouched up like a gremlin on your gaming chair. Please, let me know what you think. I thrive on feedback to make my vids and theories better. And I admit it, you have a very good story here that has baffled me. And any advice or hint to point me and your community in the right direction would mean the world to me and your community. Speaking of things that can mean the world to me, have you subscribed yet? Yeah, that's right. A self-promotion right after a heartfelt message. Bye-bye-bye!